Watching this horse from behind at the walk, we can see that she occupies more space on the right side and her barrel is visible only on this side. And also we can see that the muscles around the pelvis are not equally developed. The right side seems to be lower than the left when she walks, and also she is swinging her pelvis to the left in order to bring the left hind limb forwards. The tail is also held to the left, and when she steps with her right hind limb, the whole pelvis seems to rotate to the right. This is probably connected to the marked atrophy of the gluteals on the right side, so much so that not only we can see the tuba ischii, but we can also see the greater trochanter moving from behind. The hips appear to externally rotate as she moves, and we can tell that because we can see the point of the stifles on the outside during movement, and also because we can see her hocks turning in during movement, and the right one is more than the left. There is accessory movement of both hocks, and on the distal limb we see dishing action in order to bring the hind limb forwards. She externally rotates the distal limb and abducts it, and she brings it forward with a semicircular movement. And she's also dragging the toe of the right hind. Now, watching the horse walk from the front, we can see that on this side as well, we can see more of her barrel on the right side, which might be an indication that she has left side bending of her body. And we can see that she walks with her head and neck low, maybe with a little bit of left side bending. Her gait is not free at the shoulders, which makes her take small and choppy steps, and we can see a lot of movement at the level of the carpus and the distal limb to compensate for the lack of movement of the shoulders. Also, she's making smaller steps with the right forelimb, so I have to check on the walk from the sides if the stance face of the left forelimb is shorter or not. Now, looking at the walk from the left side, we can see that she walks with her neck and head low, which is moving rhythmically with the walk. However, although it looks relaxed, the ventral muscles of the neck tense up with every step of the left forelimb. We can also see some tightness of the muscles along the crest, and the neck appears short, and the caudal part of the cervical spine is extended, and that makes her withers appear very prominent. The thoracic spine behind the withers is in extension and stiff, and it doesn't move on the sagittal plane like in flexion extension. It moves with combined side bending and rotational movements. The lumbar spine is also in extension, and it also makes side bending and combined rotational movements. And throughout the spine, there is left rotation and left side bending. Looking at the pelvis from the left side, we can see that it swings to the left when the left hind limb goes forward and rotates to the left when the right hind limb goes forward. Now, looking at the movement of the left forelimb, we can see that there is minimal movement between the scapula and the thorax. And also in some steps, she gives me the impression that she raises her head when the left forelimb touches the ground. Also, most of the movement of the left forelimb is coming from the carpus, and then the hoof touches the ground with a lot of concussion, as if she's stomping her left foot. Moving to the hind limbs, most of the time she appears that she is taking equal steps with the left and the right, although the left one appears to have a better arc when it moves forward, whereas the right one, she drags the right toe on some steps. She has good flexion of the hip, the stifle and the hock, although it appears that the hip externally rotates during forward movement of the hind limb. Now, looking at the horse walk from the right side, again, we see that she holds her neck low. Maybe it looks a little bit more relaxed on this side. We see some tension on the ventral side. Unfortunately, we can't see the dorsal side because of her mane. We can see that she moves her head and neck from side to side with every step. Again, we see that the thoracic spine doesn't move on the sagittal plane. Instead, it makes side bending and rotational movements, and it's in extension, and so is the lumbar spine. And then we move to the pelvis, which is swinging to the left side when the right hind limb is on the ground. And during the stance phase of the right hind limb, the lumbar spine goes more into extension. There is atrophy of the gluteal muscles, and the gluteal area generally appears smaller than on the left side. On this side, the shoulder and the scapula moves better. We can see the scapula glide on the thoracic wall, and the shoulder is moving a little bit better on this side. However, most of the movement seems to be coming from the carpus and the distal limb. and the carpus moves a little bit higher on this side and lands on the ground with a little bit less concussion. And on this side, we can see the tension in the ventral neck area and the pectoral area because most of her weight bearing is on the front limbs. Now, moving to the hind limb, we already talked about the gluteal atrophy. The hamstrings are more pronounced and we can see some tension there. And when we see the limb move, we can see that it moves more easily to retraction than protraction. And we see that the hip and the stifle don't, the joints don't flex as well. The hip is externally rotated during movement. The hock seems to flex fine during forward movement. And at the distal limb, we can see in some steps the dragging of the toe.